The Panmure RSA 2001. Triple murders that shock a nation. The killer on parole who enjoys taunting his victims. A psychopath not adequately monitored by those whose job it is to protect us. The RSA murders raise an important question. Should the justice authorities be held accountable when a known offender commits a crime while on parole? These RSA murders throw two men into the public spotlight. Two men, as is often the case with murders, who knew each other. William Bell is the killer with more than 100 previous convictions. Someone we come to understand was always a ticking time bomb.
Susan Couch was left for dead after being...
Ty Hobson is the husband of Mary, one of the victims of the RSA killings. Ty Hobson responds to his wife's untimely death, not with self-pity, but a quiet determination to go on, to change the world for other victims, and to make his wife's death stand for something.
Ladies and gentlemen, victim power! Victim power! Thank you. Morning, please.
The fateful collision of these two men, Bell and Hobson, at the Panmure RSA, create the circumstances for making legal history in New Zealand. But to understand that bigger story, it's important to know William Bell's previous criminal history.
Do you agree that you're carrying a baton at that time?
Yeah, but how did I get it?
And I found out it was my son.
William Bell grows up in South Auckland. He's soon getting into trouble and becoming increasingly familiar with police procedure. Perhaps the most telling event happened 4 years earlier. Bell attacks and robs a service station worker.
One moment I was just seeing the guy, and next moment I was covered with blood.
The horrific violence was one thing, but the real key to Bell's character comes in what he did next. He follows his victim to the hospital and plays mind games with the man.
I was sitting on the little bed, sort of leaking away with a bandage around my head, and the person I now know to be William Bell rolled up on a wheelchair. He asked how I felt.
In 2001, William Bell is on parole when he gets a work experience job at the Panmure RSA. Given his previous offending and his problems with alcohol, whether this should have been allowed is something that continues to be argued about. It's here that Bell first comes into contact with Ty Hobson, a barman at the club. Ty becomes something of a mentor to the younger man.
Well, yeah, he seemed like a good guy. Jeez, I didn't know he was a criminal, but he seemed like a good guy. He talked to us and bring in something for us to eat, lollies and sandwiches, cakes.
Bell lasts only 6 weeks before he's laid off because he's disruptive and the other staff question his work ethic. He starts a burglary spree, and then on December the 8th, a Sunday morning, the criminal who by now knows all about law enforcement procedures puts on a stolen police uniform, hides a shotgun in a guitar case and goes back to his old employers. On that day, Ty Hobson, of course, has no idea of William Bell's violent history and how the young man he knew, someone he'd been kind to in fact, was about to murder 3 people, including Mary, his beloved wife of 20 years, the mother of their 2 children, and grand to their 2 grandkids. Mary Hobson also works at the Panmure RSA. She's a cleaner and on duty that morning.
And that was the morning that she went up and got killed.
Early that morning, William Bell knocks on the RSA front door. Susan Couch recognises him from his work experience and opens the door to let him in. Only then does she see the shotgun. First he shoots Wayne Johnston, then he bludgeons club president William Absalom and Ty's wife Mary. Susan Couch, the RSA's office person, miraculously survives the attack.
Hey there? Yep. Yeah, there's 3 dead. 3 dead? 3 dead, 1 alive, and I guarantee that. Okay.
I wish I was there, to try and prevent. But I knew that if I was, I probably would have been a victim myself,
Looking back, Ty Hobson wonders if Mary had a premonition about that morning.
She woke up and said I had a very bad dream, but she never told me about the dream, But then I started thinking about it when she got killed. Probably something happened like that. But whether it was to her or what, I don't know. I never got to ask her. I wish I knew what the dream was. I don't know, maybe she didn't want to tell me.
Ty Hobson, of course, still has no idea who has murdered his wife. The police continue their investigations, and eventually the evidence leads them to William Dwayne Bell, the worker Ty had mentored at the RSA. The RSA murders happened on the 8th of December 2001. A year later, William Bell goes on trial for the murder of the 3 victims. By this time, Susan Couch, the one survivor, is still recovering from her horrific injuries. William Bell thought he'd killed Susan Couch, but at his trial she becomes the star witness, the person who can positively identify him.
Obviously knowing he wasn't a policeman.
But it was a bit late, the gun was out and he was inside, so...
And Bell made the 3 of them kneel on the floor, and it was at that point that the 2 of them knew that they were really in trouble.
Mira and I started crying and he was laughing. That's the only thing I remember. Just an evil laugh.
Hearing how Bell had killed his wife and then facing her murderer in court every day is Ty Hobson's worst nightmare.
I didn't like going through that with him there because he started, how he was playing around with his pen, flicking it, and, well, I really felt like going up there and grabbing him by the throat, which I knew I couldn't do, but...
On count 1, do you find the accused, William Dwayne Bell, guilty or not guilty of murder?
Guilty, Your Honour.
I order that Mr. Bell serve 33 years imprisonment before he is eligible to be considered for parole.
Bell disappears back into the prison system, and it's only now the public learns he has a list of more than 100 previous convictions, many for violence. And now everyone is asking, had Bell been properly monitored while on parole? On the face of it, justice has been done. The psychopathic Bell has been locked away for 33 years. But after his wife's murder, Ty Hobson is changed forever. His grief becomes infused with anger. Like others affected by crime, he feels the injustice that offenders, seemingly, have more rights than victims. Just as Ty Hobson is pondering how to challenge the justice system, Garth McVicker is starting the Sensible Sentencing Trust, set up to agitate for tougher penalties for serious crimes of violence.
The crime of premeditated or aggravated murder, life must mean life for that type of offence.
It's a sad reflection on society that we are neglecting the families who've been let down by our system and become victims of our system.
Hearing other victims' experiences touches Ty and fuels his determination to do something for Mary.
It's really shocking when you hear some of their stories.
And that something is a very bold plan. He will challenge New Zealand's legal system. In this country, there is no legal means for the victim of a crime to receive compensation. So for that to happen, the law has to change. It's December 2003, and Ty's lawyer, David Garrett, files a statement of claim, the first move in a legal chess game.
What we're doing today, I think, is an action which in a sense is representative of all the people like Ty Hobson who've lost loved ones as a result of senseless violent crime, and it's an attempt to try and redress that balance by getting some accountability on the part of the Department of Corrections.
Ty Hobson versus the Crown, a David and Goliath story. Legal history is about to be made.
Yes, that's it. Lead away.
Well, it actually is a big day.
For Ty, it's not about him. It's about getting a better deal for all victims of crime.
We're only trying to do this for future victims so that they can get compensated, Just now, compensation seems to go to the prisoners, And It should be turned around. We're the one that should be getting compensated.
By the following January, the campaign suddenly takes on a momentum of its own. Many amongst the legal fraternity are willing to contribute their time for free to support victims like Ty Hobson and the other RSA families.
They were looking for someone to be up front. So they pointed to me and I said, well, if they won't do it, I'll have to do it. That's how I got involved.
The best potential plaintiff of all was the woman who survived. Right. And she doesn't want to be involved, does she, directly?
Not at this stage. I mean, horrific injuries, as you guys have all read. I mean, she's hot and cold and comes and goes, so we decided we had to make a decision, so we went with Ty. This United Nations Declaration, I'm not sure whether you're familiar with that. It says a term victim also includes, where appropriate, the immediate family or dependent. So under this agreement that New Zealand is co-sponsor of, Ty's in.
In my view, in Ty we've got the near-perfect plaintiff in the sense that he's very closely related to a victim. He's a good Kiwi joker, a picture of stability and the kind of values that we are saying are being violated by this sort of guy, Bell, being allowed to run amok.
You fellas are like pioneers, paving the way for the future for all the victims.
Well, it takes a strong victim to take it.
That's what I say.
It's the first Ty, and as long as you're prepared to hang in there, that'll be good.
You'll hang in there.
See you later. See you later.
Diaries are consulted and dates confirmed, but the one date Ty can never forget is the date of Mary's murder, which comes around every year just before Christmas.
2 years ago, it was very vivid in our minds. As we stood here on a Monday morning, we were numb. We were in shock. We were bewildered.
The memories will never go away. So that's all I have to say. And they say, oh, how are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm okay. But deep inside I wasn't, you know. Further on down the track, then they say, oh yeah, well, you got to get on with life, you know. I said, yeah, that's right, you got to get on with life. And I tried to do that, but deep down inside, it was still down there. It's stuck there.
The legal team, of course, seldom sees the private grief of Ty Hobson. They have a more pressing problem, finding a suitably high-profile barrister. David Garrett doesn't have the courtroom experience to argue a case where the Crown will no doubt use every trick they can think of to get Ty's claim struck out.
So that says, what do we do now? Is there anything we can do now? And there is.
Their quest leads them to the man who defended Winston Peters in the wine box inquiry.
Dave Garrett, yeah, he was on there first, and then Brian Henry came on later, came onto the scene, and of course he's a very clued up man.
It's something that I don't get paid for.
He wanted to come on board because he liked the idea.
But at this first meeting with Brian Henry, the differences begin to appear on the legal team.
These guys do not see this just as a compensation claim. They will see this as political as shit.
Yeah, sure.
And that's where they're coming from. But that's their weakness.
Brian, we have to work together if it's decided that it's in the best interest of this case that it's run your way.
That's right.
And that decision hasn't been made yet.
It's quite simple. I will set out the basis I'm prepared to be involved in.
Yeah.
If you guys don't like it,
with conflicting legal views, it looks like Ty Hobson's brave campaign on behalf of victims' rights has suddenly stalled. 2 years after the murder of his wife at the Panmure RSA, Ty Hobson is engaged in a legal fight to sue the Department of Corrections because it failed to properly monitor the parole of William Bell, his wife's killer. He's not doing this to get money for himself, but to benefit all victims of crime. Ty's campaign started well, but now his legal team are scrapping among themselves.
I think Brian sort of wanted to take over the show. You know, I'm running the show now, blah, blah, blah. That's why they had a bit of a thing together. And of course I was amongst that, and Dave said, well, he's my client.
What I hear Brian saying is Ty and everyone is going to be asked to make a decision in the next hour as to whether Brian's going to take it over.
If we do come involved,
yeah,
this is the way it'll be. This thing will be done the way of litigation to win.
All right. I think we agree in everything you basically said, except the fact that I don't want to see, particularly David, cast aside on this because, we've got David to drive it to where
Look,
it is.
I've dealt with lawyers for 30 years and I know lawyers' egos and I understand where David's coming from.
No, you don't. And that's an offensive remark.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
That's an offensive remark.
I'm sorry about that if you feel that way.
And you've ignored the fact for the last 10 minutes, and I've kept my temper. There are two lawyers in this room, my friend. You're one and I'm another.
Yep.
I've said from the outset I don't have your experience.
Yep.
I said from the outset that I would be very happy sitting beside you and you standing up and doing the business.
Yep.
But don't classify me as some kind of clown who is milking this for the publicity or the political agenda.
Please don't take that from me because that isn't what I'm meaning. I've just got to pop out for a conference with a judge for 2 seconds. I'll be back.
But you two you've got to suss out. Maybe he was just.
No, I can't work with him, and he can't work with me. No, we can't.
Do you think if you clear the air and because there must be a mutual respect? I mean, for you to him and him.
Right at the minute, not very much.
And after that, Garth and I had a talk, and I said to Garth, I want Dave Garrett back in there. I don't want him shoved out. So I told Brian that myself.
Well, then let's see what Brian says.
Surely good?
I don't know how he felt about it. I didn't care. I mean, Dave was my lawyer, and that's it.
This, and you'll find this, is huge drama. Poor old Tahi is going to go through shit and back.
He's been there. He's been there.
I know, but he's going to relive it, and relive it, and relive it. And he's going to stand up in front of everybody in the witness box and relive it.
The question is how best to attack the Crown.
I don't follow at all that the misfeasance cause is either not a run-up or even worse, damaging.
The case can be argued on a number of different grounds, including negligence by the Department of Corrections. But the discussion is over something called misfeasance, the idea that someone in the probation service didn't do their job properly and someone suffered harm. The lawyers debate the means, but Ty Hobson is only interested in the ends, getting justice for Mary.
If you want to run misfeasance as a separate thing, go to...
What is the... That's my point, really. What is the disadvantage of...
I don't want it colouring the negligence action. You could run a separate misfeasance attack at the probation service if you wanted to do it. You are just wasting your effort. You focus on your negligence and push it home. I believe we'll get this thing through. This thing has got just so much stink to it. You probably will have to go to the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court to finally win it.
I think everything will go well. I think they, well, looking on their faces, I think everything will be all right. Yeah.
With Brian Henry now on board, the focus moves back onto Ty, because if they're to be successful, he has to go back into the witness box. But will he be able to withstand rigorous cross-examination from government lawyers determined to diminish him?
So you didn't go back to be nosy, you went back because you rang and got no answer?
Yeah, there was no answer, and I thought then something is wrong.
Did you check to make sure you had the right number and dial again?
Oh, I never made a mistake. I knew the number. 5278311.
What did you think was wrong? What did you see when you got back? What were you thinking when you walked in the door? Did you think it'd been bad with your wife?
Yeah. Her as well.
You don't remember them saying to you she died?
No, I don't recollect them saying that. But it's just when Terry shook his head and...
That's when it dawned on you. You can tell that story in court to the judge?
To the best of my knowledge, I'll tell him, yeah.
Let's go with it.
With the first court date looming, Ty finds support in the company of the families of the other RSA victims, the Absaloms and the Johnsons, together with the occasional politician who drops by for a chance to talk.
The culture of prison has got to be changed completely to
reflect the fact that victims have to come first.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
And right now they don't. It's all about the offenders, and that's ridiculous. And it's time that the pendulum swung the other way and put the victims right at the heart of what the system's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
It's crimes against people, nothing more. I mean, where they've gone hard in America and New York, for instance, their murder rate is lower now than it was in the early 1900s.
Because we're way behind the times.
We are behind the times. Yeah, definitely.
Ty will later travel to America to see for himself how that country treats its worst violent criminals. But for the moment, he has a court case to face.
And I hope you win. Because if you win, we all win.
Yeah, all the best. Do that. Cheers, girls.
May 2004, 2.5 years after Mary's murder, and Ty Hobson gets his day in court. The media cover the event for what it is, a little guy versus the might of the state. The Department of Corrections wants the High Court to throw out Ty's claim.
Stand, please. Please be seated. The sitting of the High Court is now open. The matter between Ty Hobson and the Attorney General of New Zealand, an application for strikeout.
This case will be a moving feast until discovery.
Brian Henry is still waiting on the Department of Corrections to supply all the documents. That's not too problematic because the real case will be fought at another time. This hearing is mainly procedural.
In this pleading, sir, we are simply saying that the probation service literally did nothing.
Lawyers for the Crown see the facts differently.
Under no circumstances could the Crown be liable for the negligent acts of officers of probation or anyone of that nature, quite frankly. It's not foreseeable that William Bell would commit crimes of such gravity that these awful consequences that have occurred would have occurred.
What we are pleading is not just a duty to warn the RSA, it was a duty to do their job properly.
As you're putting it, it is, here we have a probation officer who has an obligation to supervise.
This High Court case is groundbreaking because it's about whether the Department of Corrections should have warned Mary Hobson and the others at the RSA that William Bell was potentially dangerous. It's a simple question, but provokes a complex legal argument.
Had he gone out of the RSA, walked down the road and gone into somebody else's premises nearby, on your argument, it wouldn't be necessary to warn those people.
I don't need to argue it's necessary to warn those people, is probably a better way of putting it, sir.
Unfortunately, I've got to take those things into account. My perspective is that in deciding whether there is a duty owed to these people, I have to also consider where that takes us.
That's a question for another court when they've got those facts. And
I'm also conscious that this is a strikeout application, Mr. Henry.
Well, I'd like to thank all counsel for assistance in what is a novel and difficult case.
Ty's case has provoked a challenging legal argument, hard fought on both sides.
Mr. Hobson, if I can just speak to you for a moment. I'm very conscious that you've had a tragic loss, and I'm sorry that we have to deal with your case in that way, but it raises some issues that, as a matter of law, at a more general level, have to be explored. Please accept my condolences, but I'm sure you appreciate I've got a task which is somewhat wider than the specific case. Thank you. Thank you, I'll retire.
Has anyone retired? Court will adjourn. All stand, please.
Brian Henry is real good, eh? It's good too, they're both taking two different issues, you know. They don't have to cross over and ask one the question and ask the other one. Yeah, they're doing real well.
Round one of Hobson versus the Crown is over, but the judgment is still to come.
We'll get straight into it. We're here for the young fella's 70th.
I just take my hat off to him. What an incredibly courageous guy, and that's why I say thank you.
And I said to somebody a wee while ago that this man is the quintessential Kiwi joker. And if the Department of Corrections doesn't owe him a duty of care, who does it owe a duty to?
and I'm extremely honoured to be part of the legal team. I can't put it any better than that.
They are gone but not forgotten, and I know that they are and never seem down upon us in our trials and tribulations. And I know it's been hard to forget about the past. Oh, until eternity, we will keep on living free.
And then, 4 months later, the decision of the High Court is finally delivered.
The husband of one of the 3 people murdered at an Auckland RSA has taken his battle for compensation to court. Ty Hobson claims the Department of Corrections was grossly negligent in its supervision of William Bell, who committed the murders while on parole. But today the Crown said, well...
Basically, it's not a good judgment for us. He struck us out on negligence, he struck us out on statutory duty. He says that the scheme is such that this is a public duty they owe, not an individual one. So the bottom line is, we're off to the Court of Appeal. We didn't promise you this would be easy.
The judge has struck out everything except parts of the misfeasance claim.
Well, yeah, I feel a bit let down, but I suppose that's the way the law goes. And, I mean, even if we'd have won, it would have been the same thing. They would have appealed. So, you know, that's all I know.
With the High Court judgment out, this is Ty Hobson's lowest point since Mary's death. He's failed her and all the other victims' families, relying on him to find justice. But help is about to come from an unexpected quarter. In December 2004, 3 years after she suffered her horrific injuries at the hands of William Bell, Susan Couch finally feels strong enough to become part of the legal challenge to the Crown. This moment is a turning point for Ty's legal team, because now they have a victim directly affected by the crime.
Right, Henry?
Hi, Susan.
Good, Teresa?
Good.
Okay, Ty.
Right. You introduce yourself to Susan, did you?
Yep. Reasons why we want you there. You're a survivor of the thing, which makes you far more directly involved with punitive damages. We can't claim punitive damages for Ty's wife because she's dead. The law says a dead person can't claim punitive damages. You can. So you're in a position where you make some things easier for us.
Yeah. I'm hoping that this, they'll start to make changes that they need to make, because this could happen to anyone.
Mission impossible. And here we are, do the impossible to make it possible.
With Susan Couch now on board in a joint legal challenge to the Crown, Ty Hobson is re-energised.
I'll keep on and keep on and keep on till the end. We've made things happen. And there should be no such word in a dictionary as can't. You can say cannot, maybe, but...
With the 2005 general election looming, the focus of the Sensible Sentencing Trust turns towards the politicians. And this means Ty Hobson has to step up to the microphone again as the voice of victims.
I rather look on a party that's straight up, not full of promises. Mind you, they all are. And I don't know who I'm voting for at the moment.
I'm Ty Hobson. William Bell had 102 previous convictions when he murdered my wife and the others at the Panmure RSA. Mary would still be alive today if Bell had not been given parole.
Mary was a fun-loving family woman. She will never again share the joy of our grandchildren. Mary will not be voting this election, but you will be.
Vote for a party that will end parole.
Vote for victims. Vote for justice.
That's good stuff. That's it.
Beginning to find out.
And then the roadshow is on to Parliament to talk about victims' rights to a select committee.
I'd like to think that when we finish, every one of you will support the Sensible Sentencing Trust and Ty Hobson's call to change the whole concept and the public perception surrounding human rights.
Why are the criminals allowed compensation and us, the victims, get nothing? I'm a forgiving man, you know, but I'll never forgive Bell. I'll just forgive the one that gets to him. Well, it's hard to tell with politicians, you know. They look sympathetic, but... So there we go. That was our one step. Now, I don't know how many more we'll have, heaps more steps to do, I tell you.
That's much better. I've got a better...
The next step, now 4 years after the RSA murders, is the Court of Appeal. And with Susan Couch on board, barrister Brian Henry has another opportunity to fight for the RSA victims.
I would like the Department of Corrections to get a wake-up call that they can't just roll over and hit the snooze button. I think they need to make some changes.
But the question is, will the Court of Appeal see the arguments any differently from the High Court?
What you've said here, and the essence of the pleading, is that the probation officer allowed him to work illegally. Now,
what we're saying is
it
was encouraging him into a work situation that would be illegal.
Well, it would only be illegal if he carried out the duties of a licensee without a license, but he never got to that stage. Well, this statement is just inaccurate.
Counsel, thank you for your assistance. It's a difficult matter. We'll reserve our decision and deliver it in writing as soon as we can conveniently do so. Much obliged for your assistance throughout. Thank you, Mr. Registrar. We'll retire.
Given the way the questioning has gone, Brian Henry has little grounds for optimism.
Typical Court of Appeal appearance, you get grilled on both sides, you don't get much indication from them as to which way they're thinking.
Then the next lot of waiting. Will the Court of Appeal pave the way for a landmark court case for victims' rights, or will there be another setback? Eventually word comes that the judgment is out, and the news is not good, at least for Ty.
Oh, it's okay. I and several other lawyers have had a look at the Court of Appeal judgment, Ty, and this point they're raising about the remoteness of damage is one that we don't think we'll succeed on in the Supreme Court. I just don't think we can win it. It's doubtful if Sue's close enough as well, but we've still got an arguable chance with her. The majority have said she's out as well, and one judge has said she might. That's where we've got to. I don't regret what we've done for you so far. In fact, I'm very proud of what we've done.
Just got to plot on, I guess.
Well, you said to me at the outset, and I'll remind you of it, that one of the things you wanted to do was give Sue support and encourage her to come and do what you were doing. You've achieved that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You achieved that very, very well. And her case will continue to run, and we'll just see where it gets to. We'll just walk out, we'll pop you on a comfortable seat, then we'll have a talk. I feel sorry for Ty, but I've always known that he had this problem looming. But he always said he wanted to be there to encourage Sue on, which he's done. And she does have a claim, and that will go on.
Thank you. Still determined to carry on. Wherever there's an avenue to go, we'll go. It's not the end of the road for us. I just want to keep on fighting, and I wish Sue all the luck too, on hers. Yeah, I hope she does better than me, you know. I hope they give her a good chance. I hope she wins, actually.
The New Zealand justice system has beaten him.
Fighting the Crown is like David and the lion, you know, and they say you can never win against the Crown.
But after 5 years, Ty Hobson has become something he could never have imagined, the poster boy for victims' rights. If he can't win in court, then maybe he can change the court of public opinion. And as part of a fact-finding trip to America, he's about to discover how the US deals with offenders like William Bell. August 2007, and the Sensible Sentencing Trust, the organisation that supported Ty Hobson's legal battles, is on a fact-finding trip to America. They've come here to study whether harsher prison sentences are more effective in dealing with repeat offenders. This is Phoenix, Arizona, and the Kiwi delegation have come to what's described as the toughest jail in America.
It's not designed for us to like it here. It's designed for us to dislike it.
It's very, very advanced to ours, isn't it?
The man in charge is someone everyone in America recognises by his first name, Sheriff Joe.
I've been investigated by Amnesty International, been investigated by the Civil Liberties Union, by the Justice Department. How come I'm still here and they're gone? So I took away the movies, their television, I took away their radios, took away their salt, left the pepper, took away their mustard, left the ketchup, that comes later, took away all their Kool-Aid, they get water, and put them in pink underwear. So for years they've been have to have pink underwear. Took away their coffee too, I forgot that. Put them in tents. If I did something really bad, wouldn't they like to take down the toughest sheriff? It used to be America, the world. Would they like to take that guy down? How come they don't? You think you would be worried about someone that commits a crime and have to do a little time in a tough jail?
Sheriff Joe has also brought back the chain gangs, and he makes sure they're highly visible. His motto is treat criminals like criminals. Don't make prison life easy, then maybe they won't want to come back.
You will surely do your time.
I get released and I'm going home tomorrow, so, you know, I'll be a free man, smoking a cigarette, which is all I'm looking forward to.
US prisons like this are definitely tougher than those in New Zealand, but despite the harsh regimes, the reality is the recidivism rate, the reoffending rate, is much the same as we have, around 70% for adults. So the argument that it's possible to scare people away from criminal offending is not entirely convincing, at least in Arizona.
I've learned a lot here, really. And hopefully when we get back and they see all this that was done today in the jail, that hopefully they'll open their eyes to all this. You know?
What's different in California is a law called 3 strikes. It means that by crime number 3, an offender will be automatically sentenced to 25 years without parole.
No one could believe that we didn't have life without parole for our worst murders. And we talked about Bell, obviously, with connection with Ty, and also Burton. And no one could believe that we hadn't yet got to the point where a certain category of offender was given a life without parole sentence.
William Bell wouldn't have been on the streets under the system that we've seen here. So Ty and the other families would still have their loved ones with them.
The 3 strikes law has been highly controversial in California because it's meant some criminals with minor offences have ended up with de facto life imprisonment.
Where the 3 strikes law may be paying the big dividends is it does identify those perpetrators, those criminals, who have criminal histories. And by locking them up, whether it be for 25 to life or some portion of 25 to life, you are deterring them specifically from committing more crime because they can't commit when they're incarcerated.
The message to the New Zealand delegation is exactly what they've come to hear, that tougher sentences prevent crime.
Any system that New Zealand wants to embrace, they should definitely incorporate into their punishment scheme, whatever the length of time is, consideration of the person's prior criminal history. There has been a lot of negative public reaction to those cases where someone commits a hyper-technical felony, a minor felony, and gets sentenced to 25 to life. I think the public has a sense that's disproportionate and in some cases very unfair, but New Zealand might be able to fashion a law that accomplishes the goal of appropriate long-term incarceration for known recidivist offenders, but in a way that the public will be supportive of it.
America's actually drawn a line in the sand. They've identified right, wrong, you commit this type of crime, that's where you're going to go.
If we had that back home, then maybe our crime rate will go that far down.
If New Zealand doesn't do that now, then our prison population, our crime rate is going to continue building. And a combination of what we saw in Arizona and what we've seen here, I think we can make New Zealand that paradise that we all want once again.
Ty Hobson could never have predicted the journey he's been on since Mary's murder. It's taken him to places he could never have imagined. It's changed his life. Fighting for victims has provoked complex emotions for him. He's here while Mary's not. But he does know that he's done everything possible to get justice in her name. In 5 years, he's exhausted his legal options, leaving just one more thing to try: a direct appeal to the government.
As you know, the Court of Appeal said that your case is not a runner. Have you heard the phrase ex gratia payment before?
No.
Okay, well, basically what that means is we, in this case, the government, has no legal obligation, no liability to you, but nevertheless we recognise that you have suffered a wrong and we're going to make this payment to you. It gives the government an opportunity to make themselves look good. I think that that is a real, well, it is in fact the only practical avenue we have open to us at the moment. The best approach would be a letter to Mr. Goff.
I can't see an end to this because the feelings I have are always with me. I say to myself, why is there not some kind of compensation for the trauma I go through? Although the first judge at the High Court said he was very sorry for what happened, no one in the government has even said sorry. But I understand that we have now reached the end of the road and I have nowhere else to go. I respectfully ask that you consider making an ex gratia payment to me and a formal apology. Maybe then I can put Mary's death behind me and try to get on with the rest of my life. Yours sincerely, Ty Hobson.
For Ty, this battle with the legal system has never been about money. It's always been about making Mary's death count for something, getting a better deal for all victims of violent crime. It's a battle he'll go on fighting in whatever way he can.
They are gone but not forgotten, and I know that they will often send their blessings down upon us in our trials and tribulations. And I know it's been hard to forget about the past. So until eternity, we will keep on living free.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.